distractions around that. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil mursaleen, Sayyidina wa Habibina Mawlana Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi barik wa sallim, subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana, Allahumma 'allimna ma yanfa'una wa zidna ilma ya muqallibal qulub, thabbit qulubana ala dinik, ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Was the first time we get Mawlana Muhammad, some of you? I mean, first time ever. But in pre-COVID, that was a long time ago. Yeah. Well, Muhammad might finish his surah. Maybe. I think we're on verse number 9 after like 2 years. I think I'm going to give Muhammad only short surahs now. So we can spend the year on that. On that. Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Okay. So we are on Surah Mutafifin. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ويل للمطففين. Woe, destruction to those that cause decrease, cause lightness in the scales. الذين those إذا اكتالوا على الناس, those that when they
we're not going to take the picture.
When they buy something for themselves in weight and by extension measure as well, يستوفون, they take their payment in full. وإذا كالوهم أو وزنوهم يخسرون, and when they sell something and they weigh that thing for other people or they measure it for other people, يخسرون, they cause loss in that item. ألا يظن أولئك أنهم مبعوثون. ألا يظن, do those أولئك, those people, do not think أنهم, that they مبعوثون, that they will be resurrected. ليوم عظيم, for a great day. يوم يقوم الناس لرب العالمين, on a day that people will stand before the Lord of all the worlds. There's for Qiyamah, there's basically textual proof. Whatever textual proof, Allah tells us about Qiyamah, so we believe in Qiyamah. Allah tells us about Qiyamah, so we believe in Qiyamah. But there's also intellectual proof that if you had people who are Mutafifin and they're called Yukhsirun, if there wasn't Qiyamah, what would their account be? And in a sense, if they weren't taken into account, Allah would then allow injustice to take place. And that wouldn't basically accord with His perfect justice. You know what I mean? So there's also an intellectual proof of Qiyamah aside from a textual proof. But you can establish certain truths without text. And then text comes to affirm and to fill in those understandings. And Qiyamah is one of those things where both of those proofs exist. Intellectual proof and when I say intellectual, I mean aqli proof, like a rational proof, and a textual proof. Kalla. So we end there. No. When Allah says kalla, kalla is therefore like a negation of what came previously. So what is Allah negating about the previous things? ألا يظن أولئك أنهم مبعوثون. كلا, definitely not what they think. Definitely not what they think. Absolutely not what they think. كلا. إن كتاب الفجار لفي سجين. إن, verily, undoubtedly, you can see there's going to be a inna and Allah. So, and the kalla also. There's lots of points of emphasis in this verse. Kalla, inna, and la. Allah says, inna, definitely, kitab al-fujjar, the book, the record of al-fujjar, of those that who are excessively sinful, that they are bursting forth with sin. La, they will undoubtedly be fi, in sijjin, in something called sijjin. So before we come to sijjin, let's speak about fujjar. Who are the fujjar being referred to? The Mutafifin, but there's two qualities of the Mutafif. Not the Mutafifin. The Mutafifin is an amal, right? But Allah links a belief to that action. Allah says, do not think that, do not believe that you'll be taken into account. So who is the Fujjar?
Believers.
So in other words, the Fujjar can be multiple audiences. But what I'm saying is, in the previous, Allah spoke about two things. Allah spoke about a negative action, and Allah spoke about an absence of a belief. The negative action is that people are defrauding other people. The belief issue is that they don't believe in the year after. So the one immediate audience that comes to mind is that the Fujjar are the Mutafifin that don't believe in the year after. That's going to be the primary, like what comes to your mind in terms of context of this. Then you get two other categories, because that's 1 plus 1. What if you have one of the two? So you have, let's just say, like Greek text, you have like two columns. One column is Mutafifin, one column is believe in the year after. Then if you put the XX, they don't believe in, they're Mutafifin and don't believe in the year after. But now you get Mutafif, let's say you get Mutafifin, but they believe in the year after. So XY. No, you're not talking about. Yeah, I'll make my own. But the interest is there. The interest is there.
Yeah, but it's not.
Oh, the same as the charge is there. It's created there. No, they should be there. I did that diagram last time. Eh? How did that pen thing work? His opinion. How does this pen thing work? I like all this fancy stuff. So last time I did like a not so clear thing. Anyway, so in this case here, oh, here we go. This was not the, I don't know how you created all the stuff. It should be it. Is there a clear canvas here? Hey? Is it here? Clear canvas. So what I'm saying is that here is the action and the belief. So here, if I make a X is bad and a Y is tick is good. If the action is bad and the belief is bad, that's the first Fujjar, because they don't have the right action and they don't have the right belief. But then also you get people who are Muslims who are Mutafifin or defrauding others. So in other words, they have an action, but they have the right belief. You with me? So they will also be part of the Fujjar. You with me? Because Allah is speaking about the Mutafifin. And then you get some people who don't defraud other people, but they don't have the right belief. So the disbelievers who don't defraud other people, they're also going to be Fujjar. Why? Because they are أَلَا يَظُنُّ أُولَٰئِكَ أَنَّهُمْ مَبْعُوثُونَ. That if you don't believe that you're mab'uthun, that's also going to be part of that group, but it's not like the direct address in this case, but still be included by the generality of the word Fujjar. So what I'm saying is like you have almost like progressive application. First application is those who are Mutafifin because they deny the year after. Second application is those who are Mutafifin, but they don't deny the year after, but they're not conscious enough of it. And then the most like distant one is those who are not Mutafifin, but they are denying the year after. So inna kitab al-fujjar, that will be the fujjar. Then Allah says there will be definitely lafi in sijjin. What and where is sijjin? What does the word sijjin mean? A sijjin is a prison. A sijjin is a prison. So sijjin is an intensive form. So there's the idea of like an intense, like a super maximum security prison. So this prison, according to most, okay, there's ikhtilaf about many of these things, but they say the most common tafsir is that this is going to be a place in hellfire. In hellfire. Now, when Allah says inna kitab al-fujjar lafi sijjin, what do you understand by the kitab? What is the kitab? Can be the book of deeds. But now, is the actual book in the prison? Is it okay? Let's listen to this way. If we apply the verse literally, It literally means that there is a book of records that belongs to the Fujjar, and this book of records is in a place called Sijjin, which according to most scholars is going to be a place in hellfire, which is the intensive form of the word Sijjin. That's going to be the literal zahir meaning of the verse. But if I understand the verse not to mean that the actual book is in Sijjin, how else could I understand it?
That is a book that is kept in safety and security. That is there. There is nobody that can touch it or alter it.
Okay, safety, security can alter it. Okay, so the other interpretation is when Allah says Kitab al-Fujjar, Allah is actually speaking about the people are in Sijjin, and the Kitab al-Fujjar is the actions recorded in them led them to Sijjin. You know what I'm saying? Umar is saying that the actions contained in the Kitab al-Fujjar, that will be resulting in these people ending up in those actions will lead to Lafi Sijjin. The people will enter into Sijjin. No, I didn't. Do you tafsir that the book might be protected? Or was that just a reflection? Okay. Did anybody hear? I read briefly, but I didn't read that in tafsir, particularly the book itself is protected. Anyway, so that's going to be the understanding. But Allah says, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا سِجِّينَ وَمَا and مَا أَدْرَاكَ, what will make you know? And again, the adra here is past tense, because Allah can give you the answer. What's going to make you know? Ma, what is this Sijjin? What is this Sijjin? I only thought about it now, but the answer is actually to do with the kitab. But anyway, let's get on, inshallah. What is the Sijjin? My answer would be, what is this book in the Sijjin? What is the book in the Sijjin? Allah says, Kitabun, it is a book which is marqum. What does marqum mean? Everybody in Keita knows the meaning of this word. Rakam. Ma'akaf, no? It's actually the qaf. But if from Keita you say rakam. What is it? Raqam. Raqam, you know, substantial raqam. You know what I mean? You must make the ra empty, ra, and make the qaf into a kaf. This is riwayah Kiptoni. Rakam. Riwayah Kiptoni. But the actual is actually a raqam. So what does raqam actually mean? So generally, a raqam is something. It's like kataba. Raqam is to record something, but the raqam is generally something which is like inscribed. In fact, it comes from the idea of material. Like, you know, when you have material and you have like patterns in the material and it's embroidered, it's not something you can like erase. That's the day of raqam. And in fact, some of the raqams are also material. You know that the proper Makkah ones, the black with the gold. Yeah, that's most only from Makkah you can get that, and from savans. So that's the proper raqam. But now is ook te say raqam, no? But what do you say? Let's keep it original, no? Do you guys say raqam or you say raqam? That's not raqam. No. So when Allah says kitabun, it's a book which is marqum. So marqum is ismul maf'ul. So raqama is he inscribed. Raqim, ismul fa'il, is an inscribe. And the marqum is that which has been inscribed. Allah then says this Sijjin, my understanding will be this kitab in the Sijjin will be is referring to a kitab which is marqum. So what's the idea when it says marqum? There's the idea of permanence. The idea of a book where the record is secured. The record is secured. And remember when Allah is speaking about a small transaction. You sell the kilo of dates for like 950 grams. It's a small, it takes a few moments. But that few moments is in Kitab al-Marqum. It is something which is which is manqum. And I know our scholars really used to emphasize greatly in terms of your spiritual well-being is linked to the possibility of your income. And if you have doubt, rather leave off the doubt and just make sure that you have permissible income. And it's even worse when it's impermissible based on defrauding other people. I mean, obviously you get all your riba questions, which are like a whole 1,000 questions. But now I'm saying now it's based on defrauding other people, like open defrauding, cheating other people. It's actually spiritually bad for yourself and your family. So you might think that I've built my family out of this, a beautiful house and beautiful lounge table here of 30,000 rand, all these chairs and all this lovely food I've bought. But you've actually harmed your family with that provision. You rather have a plastic table and you have some food which is halal, not based on defrauding other people. And in fact, this week now, more financial stuff just came to my mind about, well, you hear all these stories about what was happening in different places. But it's just, I came to the realization that the human being, when it is not aware of the divine repercussion, will always, eventually, almost always fail. They will just say, maybe the first time someone defrauds something becomes difficult, you feel terrible, but if you do a bad thing for long enough, it becomes normal. Eventually, and also because everybody else is doing it. So the whole right thing also becomes, and what happens is people will justify things in like many ways. Like you will steal, like say you work for government, you steal from government because government is corrupt and they must be stealing your tax. So you cannot steal a print in the paper there because they're stealing your tax. So you people make up these justifications, like because they rationalize it and they self-justify. And we have to avoid the temptation, especially as it becomes like a mass thing. Our ulama are very strict about being particular about your wealth and what you buy your food. Like your particularness around that it be halal. Yeah, I think when it comes to working, I think there's like let's call it, there's a general understanding between yourself and your employer. When your employer employs you for a certain amount of period, there is obviously going to be like, and let's call it an understood downtime. Like you go to the bathroom, you have a coffee break, you have a chat. You're not supposed to be a robot. But it is problematic if you now, like you start another business and you like take 2 hours out, something which is like not the norm. What I'm saying, it's not like you be a robot. It's like normal downtime and all of those things, but it's wrong when you kind of, what I mean, you just lie about some things, or especially also like time sheets and all of those things. Like I used to be particular when I used to work a long time ago. Yeah, when you work and you're at it, what you call it, kilometers, you claim your. And if I was unsure, I'd always make it less and less, just for my own comfort. Because you always tend to add a few kilometers. Now you get some more money. Give a 3, 4, 5 rand a kilometer. I'd rather make it less than $. Just to be sure about it. I'd rather round down, not round up. Just a better. You just feel in a better space. It's just better by Allah Ta'ala. Just always be conscious about those type of things, because it slips slowly. Everybody around you is doing it, and it slips more and more and more. Yeah.
And then you have that you're going to make food for your family, and then you're going to be okay. You're going to feed your family, and they're going to be healthy, and they're going to make you up.
Yes. Yeah.
And bank starts off with first heist. Talking of bank, it starts off small.
Yes. And I think also in our climate, it is like it's easy to self-justify. I'm doing this because the people who are supposed to do this are corrupt, and they're taking all my money, and they're not providing for me, and therefore I'll just do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I must say I do differentiate though with, okay, I said This personal thing here. But I do differ. I don't know how to put this now, but it's different when it comes to like ownership and transaction. But sometimes the government has like imposed stuff which I do question sometimes, like the degree of tax which is imposed. Just like this, it's not a transactional environment where you say I'm the worker and so on. So that might be like a different discussion in terms of when the ruler imposes stuff on you, which could be considered to be unjustifiable. You with me? I'm not saying because it's not like work where I'm getting a job and I have a contract with a person. It's an imposition on someone. Because I believe at some stage it may become justifiable to have it like a tax revolt or something. You know, because you can only like kind of like drain people so much, and then there will be a rebellion against it. And because many of these things could be argued to be unjustified, but I'm saying that's a specific case. I'm not speaking about your employer now or Eskom electricity and those things. I'm speaking about that specific case. I'm saying when it's a contractual thing, and then
Do we have an obligation to obey the laws? I mean, from Islamic point of view, I mean, we know from living here we have to, but
like the general answer is yes, but there may be cases where a different. What I'm saying is when it becomes unjustifiable, or becomes like in the Sharia, it becomes like unjustifiable. So those are kind of the questions you start asking on specific cases. But the general answer is you are required. You obey the law of the land. Yeah. And also what happens is that the ruler of the land also has the power to apply law that amends Sharia law. Like for simple example, the ruler of the land can set an age limit on marriage, and according to Sharia to be permissible if it's done by the Khalifa. Then the Khalifa has almost like a regulatory power, obviously within certain parameters, that has to amend certain things or regulate certain things. So those are all the discussions. I mean, it's a big discussion now with regard to mandatory vaccination. Like that's the kind of discussion you're sort of having now. If the government makes it mandatory, according to the Sharia, must I take it? You with me? So now we're getting that space now where we start thinking about, you know what I mean? And someone I mean, where do I navigate myself? I'm going to answer the MC as a fatwa, can read there and you can argue with them. but they basically put the middle road down. But you can read the fatwa inshallah on that. So, but I'm saying those are the kind of things where we start, because in general it's yes, but there may be individual cases where we say, is this actually? Because I mean, what did the government start doing like unjust things, like unjustly closing down religious practice? You know, they will say no, that in that case, no, this, you know, you should carry on with your practices and so on. So there are limits to it. But in general, we have a social contract. We have a social contract with society that we obey the rules, the general rules, and we live according to it. Now, Kitab al-Marqum. May Allah make us of those people. There's so few people who are really like upright. So few. But we need strong voices. And you must be a strong voice also. You must be unashamedly. That's why I believe that series intro was such a hit. Because, you know, it's an example of an unashamedly principled, just power. And we have, you know, you look at the Muslim world, you don't see a lot of leaders like that. You know what I mean? Who are unashamedly just and principled. And now we have to look at the fictitious series for inspiration. Because you can't find real people. so we have to look now to fictitious people and UFC fighters to find some inspiration, and cricket players. You know, Habib and Hashim Amla, and you know, now we don't know where the inspiration is. Now we're like looking, you know, any inspiration, I'll take it. Any inspiration, give it to me, I'll take it. Because I'm so utterly despondent by the examples I have. Yeah. Even there's a beautiful example now of an ambassador arguing with the Israeli soldier, South African ambassador. I think where's a Muslim Arab ambassador going to argue with any other soldiers? You know, I mean, just that like for me, it reminded me of the roots of the South African struggle. There's a video of this South African ambassador. He's arguing. He goes to an olive farm where the settlers are invading, and he argues with the soldiers about defending the Palestinians' rights. But I mean, he's an ambassador. I mean, it's like a significant thing to do. You're a person of power. To do that, something's important, even if it's symbolic, it's an important symbol. And that's actually where our roots are from. It makes me proud then to be part of a South African legacy. That's our kind of principal stance. But the other nations, yeah, Rob, it's like the complete opposite. It's like embracing the oppressor as your brother. That's what the other nations are doing now. They're embracing it openly. Open relations, open trade, open everything. It's not even like a principled, at least you can say we don't support him, but he'll do a backdoor deal. That's still, I mean, at least you're saying the right thing. Now imagine that you openly know these are our brothers and our Ahlul Kitab, and we love them even though they're killing and dispossessing our other brothers. So it's like this, the inspiration is gone, you know what I mean? It's terrible. So we have to be an inspiration ourselves in the places we occupy. So even in your workplace, be the sole voice that speaks up against things like this. Be the sole voice. What's that? Can they summarize? Yes, I'll summarize inshallah. But I was talking the whole time, they weren't discussing now. But I will summarize all the messages inshallah. What do you guys say now? I think Sister Nurana was speaking about just how common it is within the workplaces and so on. Now, and also as a reminder, direct messages are on the whole screen so we can all see it. Sorry about that. We only have one device here. Wailu yawma idhil lil mukaththibin. Wail. Where did the well come before? Wailul lil mutaffifin. Wailul yawma idhin, on the day. Yawma, the day is a preposition of time. Dharf zaman. On the day, lil mukaththibin, for the mukaththibin. What's a mukaththib? It's not a person who lies, it's someone who deems something else a lie. They deem revelation a lie, they deem the Prophet a lie, and they do it continuously, and therefore the ismul fa'il for the ismul fa'il, because it's a permanent state. They keep on denying the truth, they keep on denying the truth, reminder after reminder. They won't believe in the Prophet, they won't believe in the Quran, they won't believe in the year after. So again, if you had to draw the circle, often the Mutafifin will be like a segment of the Mukaththibin. The Mutafifin will be in other words, Mutafifin is a very specific wrong action, whereas Mukaththibin is a general group of people. A general group of people who deny the truth. Alladhina yukaththibuna biyawmiddin. Alladhina, those that yukaththibuna. It is, which type of verb is it? Second bab, mudari. Meaning what? Continuous. Fi'l mudari is the idea of continuous. So mukaththibin is permanent because that becomes a title. Allah is saying those who yukaththibuna mudari, those who continuously deem a lie. What do they deem a lie? Yawmiddin, the day of judgment. Those who continuously deem the day of judgment to be a lie. Yeah. Also, I find that I do a lot of consulting, and a lot of consulting focus is on processes and controls and all of those things. And generally, almost everything can be broken. You can break it, you can move around it, you can find a way. So I do believe within companies, in workplaces, it also has to appeal to the moral capacity of people. Because almost like all the focus now is on processes, which I think is a good thing. It's good you have all the processes in place, and you have your 3 codes, and you have your slips, and you have your, everything. Yeah, so, but I'm saying there's almost no discussion about your moral accountability, because that's almost seen as like religious. So you don't bring your religion into the workplace. But for me, that's universal. It's universal not to defraud people. You know what I mean? It's a universal principle. But I think we should that discussion must be brought into the workplace. Because people don't speak about ethics. They're just like, it's just about the control. Yeah, that's the values that it's the same adjectives for everybody. Yes.
But I think that most of the time now, it's built into you. You have like your basic and your incentive. So everything is based on the incentive, which is based on the action. So if
Yes.
you need this, and that, then you earn your money. But there's other things that there's no monetary amount that's linked to that. But
Yes,
do
yes.
the right thing. It shouldn't matter whether you're going to earn the extra,
Yes. It almost I think that like it's about the reformation of what the objective of a corporation is, and shifting slowly. Like for example, it's first now only profit driven. Now we start to slowly like, okay, profit driven and environmentally conscious. We say now we shift the profit driven and environmentally conscious and whatever diverse. Profit add all the time, because we're moving away from the only profit driven. But I'm saying part of that move is that you move towards a company which is also ethical.
Well, but that's been something from 2004 with all the gold. So when it comes to
No, I know a lot of it is just greenwashing and just lip service, but I'm saying just like there needs to be a fundamental shift within what a successful from an Islamic point of view. I'm saying if you're a Muslim company or you're a director and stuff, you must say that this company's success is not only based on profit, because it's not actually if the profit is going to destroy the earth, it's not a sustainable venture, because you're killing people around you. This is destroy a community. Is it then successful? So those paradigms needs to be challenged, and I think that as we progress more and more, I don't know if it will become challenged on the big corporations, but I say you have to act in the power that you have. Like for example, one day if you're a business owner, do you pay the people the minimum you can get away with? So you get someone to clean your company for 3,000. Do you pay them 3,000? Do you pay them 5,000? If you can afford it. Those are questions you ask yourself. You know, and we have to have a different view of what, because it's a lot of these things are all just nafs. It's just greed. It's just greed. No. So keep fighting those fights. One day you're gonna be big shots, inshallah. You're still young now. One day you're gonna be big shots on top there. Your partners there, whatever you're gonna be, major shareholders there, and you make the right choices in those places. Alhamdulillah, there are many Muslim CEOs running around, mashallah, but there must be Muslim all the way through, through and through. Alhamdulillah, inshallah. الذين يكذبون بيوم الدين وما يكذب به إلا كل معتد أثيم. وما, and does not continuously deny it regarding resurrection, the يوم الدين, إلا, except kullu. Who can tell me why kullu is in Raf'un? It's a super advanced question. I don't expect the second years to know it, or even the third years. Now, something I haven't told you, but I mentioned before in class, when you have illa, and you have a negation before illa, you remove illa and you remove the negation. Then you add then you can add the labels. If you have illa, and you have a negation before illa, and you want to know what the grammar labels are, you remove the illa and you remove the negation. It is the fa'il. Good. You understand? Yukadhibu kullu. Yeah. Because the double negative is still a positive. And does not do this except that. So that person is not doing it. Like I said, no one entered except Zaid. Well, I can say Zaid entered. No, if you remove the negation and you remove the istithna, the illa. So therefore, kullu is the mubtada. It doesn't change your appreciation of the meaning. That's just for some people. I'm sorry, the fa'il. The fa'il. Doesn't change the meaning of the sentence, it just helps you, it's a grammar level, but it helps you to think about that. That is actually the one doing the action. Wama, and does not yukadhibu bihi, does not deny it, illa, except where's the fa'il? Kullu. Except every. Mu'tad, what's a mu'tad? No. So I think ada ya'da is ada ya'da or ada ya'du. There's two. I get confused into the one means to race. I think ada ya'da means to race. Ada ya'du means to transgress, which means actually that you race into someone else's territory. And they forget the word adu. Adu is someone who crosses into your territory, and they charge into your territory. So a mu'tad is the one who goes into a space they shouldn't be in. And that's in English called what? Transgressing. Well, sometimes like you have to like break down a simple word because you don't think about what the word means. So transgress means to enter a space you shouldn't be in. And that's what enemy does, and that's what a mu'tad does. They enter beyond the boundaries set by Allah Ta'ala in a space they shouldn't be in, and they are athim. Athim is the intensive of athim. And athim is a sinner, but athim is an intense sinner. Meaning what? The people who sin intensely. And as we mentioned before, it becomes part of people's habits and culture that they do the wrong thing. I was mentioning three things about them. Will not be of the mukadhibin. Three things. The one is mu'tadin, the second one is athim, and the third thing is إذا تتلى عليه آياتنا قال أساطير الأولين. إذا, when tutla, the word tala means what? From the word tilawa. From the word tilawa, which means recite. So tutla means is recite, is majhul. And where's the naibu fa'il? Ayatuna. So when is recited alayhi, upon this person, upon this mu'tad athim, is recited upon this person, ayatuna, our verses. Meaning what? When this mukadhib, when the Prophet comes to them, or believer comes to them and says, these are the ayat of Allah Ta'ala, you're going to be raised on the day of Qiyamah, you're going to be held accountable for this fraud, for this transgression. What is their response? Qala, they say, asatirul awwalin. Asatir, what's asatir? Yeah, I think story came from there. Ustur, I think ustur is the mufrad. Ustur, I think. Ustur, like story. Ustur. But I think it's an Arabized word. So some words are Arabized, which means that they were like Persian and they became Arabic after a number of years. I think asatir is one of them. Asatir, but asatir is the same as what's the other word for story? In Arabic. A qissa is another story. So asatir is generally considered to be like a fable or like a made-up story, whereas a qissa is it's a narration or it's like an actual story. Whereas asatir is considered to be a fictional story. So the word asatir, like a fictional story. And so in other words, they say it's the fables, the fictional stories of who? Of al-awwalin. Awwal means?
The ancients.
The ancients, from the early times. What are you reading a book here, 1,500 years old? Different context doesn't apply to us. No, the principles will always apply. The principles of revelation deals with human nature. Human nature doesn't change. Whether you're doing it on the table in Medina in the time of the Prophet with your dates, whether you're doing it online with your online transactions, it's the same nafs. The same nafs is making the same choices. Therefore, asatirul awwalin. Kalla bal. Kalla. No. Nay. Negation of the people who have this attitude that these are asatirul awwalin. Bal, rather, what has happened to these people? ران على قلوبهم ما كانوا يكسبون. ران, what's rana mean? What's rana mean? Yeah, rana is considered to be that which appears over metal base. Like it's actually rust. It's basically a covering actually. Rana has, where's the fa'il for rana? Must be in left or in. What is rana ala qulubihim? Which one is the fa'il? Where is the fa'il for rana? Rana qala, it's a fi'l. Online. Where's the fa'il? Is the fa'il online? Anybody? Who's here? Where is the Sabira? Fa'il is ma. The ma there. You said so, no? You must say louder. The fa'il is the ma. So rana as covered. Some say stain or in the case, but rana is basically any covering, can be over metal or even over a mirror or something if you leave it. Basically any covering, like a rust basically. Rana as covered ala qulubihim, ala upon qulub, their hearts. What has covered, what has rusted upon their hearts? What has covered upon their hearts? Ma, that which. The action is the cause of the rust. The action is the fa'il of the rust. The action causes the rusting, the encrusting, the staining. Ma, that which kanu, they were, yaksibun, that which they earned. Yaksibun means they earned with their actions. From the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what does the Prophet say about when you commit a sin? A black spot appears on your heart. And how do you remove it? Istighfar, tawbah, you repent to Allah, and then it becomes removed. What happens if you don't remove it? Next spot, next spot, next spot, next spot, until your heart becomes encrusted. When your heart is encrusted, what happens then? Whenever someone recites to you and gives you advice, you can't accept the advice because spiritually, you don't have the spiritual capacity to accept it. Because your heart's encrusted, so that light, because guidance is something which is not only rational. Human beings are highly irrational creatures. We are highly irrational. Otherwise, we'd all be super fit sitting here. Because rationally, it's better to be fit. You ask me. Rationally, you're all done your homework and prepared. Human beings are highly irrational creatures. You don't do things because of rationale. You do things because of the state of your heart. Really, you do not act according to what is right and wrong in your mind. You react according to the capacity of your heart to accept what is right. Because now, very few Muslims are actually confused about what is right and wrong. Very few. We went to enough Jummahs, really Jummah muftis. After you've been to Jummah, since you're 10 years old, your radio's playing the whole day there, voice of the Cape, you heard enough stuff, you know what is right and wrong. But the capacity to follow through is based on the state of the heart. And Allah is saying that there are people that because of ma kanu yaksibun, because of that which they have done over and over and over, that has caused what? Rana, a covering, which has caused what? For them to be persistent mukaddibi. They constantly will deny the truth because the heart doesn't have the spiritual capacity to accept it. And you know this experientially, like our hearts are like I don't know about you, I get scared of my own heart. Like I fear the states of my own heart. Therefore, one of the du'as of the Prophet says, وَلَا تَكِلْنِي إِلَى نَفْسِي طَرَفَةَ عَيْنٍ. Don't entrust me to myself for even the blink of an eye, because I will like destroy myself. You with me? Like you think about your own heart states. You have to be like super vigilant about the state of your heart, because if your heart becomes harder and harder, you sometimes can't get it. You can't get it back, and you can lose yourself. You can lose yourself to like a terrible degree, and you can't get yourself back. So that preserving, like coming to class like this, mashallah, it's hearing Quran. This helps you just make your heart survive. You take this out, you take the reminders out. After a few weeks, few months, that environment weighs you down. I think it changes you. And some people can't come back. People can't come back. No. No. No, the kasb is generally considered to be the deeds which you've acquired now, like your life set of deeds. That will be like a literal kasb. A literal kasb is like the material wealth and objects you acquire, but the spiritual kasb is your action that you acquire, your spiritual action that you.
You could acquire a lot of good things, but because of the custom of the heart, you will never be able to receive the benefit of it.
Yes, generally, what kasb is just generally basically the what you acquire from all your actions. That's your kasb. That's almost like as if we can say, like, we have wealth, you have 10,000 rand, then you spend it and you have a kasb, you get something back. Now Allah gives you the capital of time, and you spend that time doing something, and what you get back from that, that's your kasb. That's what you have acquired. And if your kasb is negative, Allah is saying that your heart can become so hard that you can't see the light, you can't see the truth. كَلَّا إِنَّهُمْ عَنْ رَبِّهِمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ لَمَحْجُوبُونَ. Like, I think this end there, inshallah. There's a few more verses left, so we'll end there on verse number 14, inshallah. Really important ayah, surah for our time. I know many people went for Hajj classes. We always say that to understand Islamic trade principles is more important than Hajj. Why? Because you go to Hajj class when you go to Hajj. But everybody in the life is going to trade, going to buy and sell stuff. So we should actually, education on financial transactions and how you manage wealth management, financial management should be like a fard ain for believers. How you sell something, how you buy something, how much clarity. Yeah. All those things are important. So these are the beginning of that. Muhammad, mashallah, is don't ask him to take a whole mashallah. Ask him a separate course. But mashallah, he specializes in Islamic transactions. But I think you don't need like the depth stuff. You just need like the basics to start off with. This is how a believer, what the foundations are, and work from there, inshallah. May Allah bless and protect. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Sheikh.
Jazakallah khair.
What about learn this stuff at madrasa and then like that's it, right? You never actually have access to it now.
Yes, I have been considering for a number of years. And I continue to consider it. No, but I think there are also